Welcome back. Episode 10 of the Next Season podcast. In the previous episode, I dug into the first two bricks of the mindset pillar for next season athletes. And that is the inside move, which is all about agency and gratitude and controlling what you can control. And then we talk about win the inning, right? It's chunking, it's small steps, it's choice point prioritization and a victor mentality. And this episode is part two of that mindset pillar. We're going to cover the other three bricks of this pillar. I know it's a lot. This is the big one. So let's go. Brick number 3 is what I call the Rubberband Traits. A couple of years ago, I was coaching a 12U baseball team, and of course, so many 11 and 12-year-olds were struggling with mental toughness. You know, if there was one bad play in the field, the floodgates would open, and we lose all the momentum. If somebody struck out at a key moment, the wheels would fall off, and they'd be done for the rest of the game, and the next couple of batters would get out, and that's just the mentality. So as soon as one bad thing would happen, that player would be crushed and the rest of the team would follow along. Guess what? This is not just 11 to 12-year-olds. This is everybody. Okay? This happens at all levels. And so what I did was I noticed this, and I'm like, how do we get them to stop this and just catch this in the moment, recognize it at least, and then start to implement some strategies to be able to redirect that energy and refocus and recalibrate in the moment. And so what I did is I gave each kid a rubber band. And it has the words grit and resilience on it. I still have one here. Okay. But it has the words grit and resilience on it. Just a simple rubber band that I wrote on with a pen. And some athletes, you may have heard of this, they'll do this where you make a mistake or something doesn't go your way, and you snap your rubber band on your wrist as a way to reset and to snap back. It's just an interruption back to the present moment and in intentional thought. And so my message to the kids was, when you make a mistake or something bad happens, you snap that rubber band and you say to yourself, snap back. Okay. That's your reset. And it worked. That wasn't a complete shift. They still made mistakes and they still lost games, but they started to recognize it and they practiced. I would see the kids out there as many as 11 and 12-year-old kids would do, right? But I would see them out there and they make a mistake and they snap it on the wrist and they just then reset. This isn't about abusing yourself. This isn't about some self-harm or anything like that. This is just about, okay, I need a quick mental reset. I got this. I'm shifting back into the moment. And I thought about it more and I realized that the rubber band really is the perfect metaphor for grit and resilience and perseverance and tenacity. And that was the beginning of what I call the Rubberband Traits, which are all about mental toughness. And these words, grit, resilience, and perseverance and tenacity, they're often used interchangeably, but what I've realized is they're actually quite different. Psychologist Angela Duckworth, one of the most referenced authors and speakers on this topic, wrote a book called Grit. She says that grit is the sustained effort and passion toward long-term goals. Grit isn't about some short bursts of intensity, but rather the ability to endure through setbacks and to stay committed and maintain focus over time. So if you think of grit like a rubber band being stretched, okay, that rubber band is being stretched, okay, it's going to face tension, but it doesn't snap or break under pressure. Instead, it expands and it demonstrates the capacity to handle more and more than what seemed possible at first. And I think this metaphor encapsulates the essence of grit, right? It's pushing beyond comfort while maintaining structural integrity. It's not breaking. And when I stretch this rubber band, the band is displaying grit. It's being stretched, being pulled, it's being strained, but it's not breaking. That's grit. Resilience is different. When that rubber band is being pulled tight and then released, it snaps back into place. That is resilience. That snapping back into place is resilience. And what's cooler is the more that I stretch this, okay, if I do this hundreds and hundreds of times, this rubber band is actually going to start to get a little bit looser. It's going to get a little bit bigger. And so resilience is not about just snapping back into the same exact place, but by facing grit, by doing gritty things, getting stretched, pushing yourself, you're actually adapting and growing stronger because of that experience. Think back to the 2004 Red Sox against the Yankees in the ALCS. The Red Sox were down 3-0 against the Yankees in the series. No team had ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. They had to win 4 straight to win that series and go to the World Series. But they didn't focus on winning 4 games in a row. They focused on one game, one inning, one pitch at a time. Remember from the previous episode, chunking. They focused on one thing at a time, and they demonstrated the grit and the resilience required to overcome. So we've got grit, that's getting stretched. We've got resilience, that's snapping back into place, and then over time, getting bigger and stronger from it. Okay, mentally, physically, everything. And then there's perseverance. Perseverance could be thought of as the combination of grit and resilience repeated. So it's stretching and snapping back again and again and again and again and again without giving up. It's the ability to endure repeated challenges over time, just like a rubber band being stretched repeatedly, but still remaining intact. So in baseball, I think of a pitcher grinding through a tough game. You're facing batter after batter, the best in the world, the best hitters in the world, and you're adjusting to your strategy. And then the second and third time through, they've already seen you once or twice. Now they're seeing you again. And so you've got to adapt again. You learn from each pitch, each at bat, and you have to mix up your looks. Staying mentally tough throughout that entire process. So physical fatigue, mental fatigue, all part of it. Okay. Duckworth found that the most successful people aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who keep showing up when things get tough. So that's grit, resilience, and perseverance. The fourth rubber band trait is tenacity. And tenacity, think about it this way. So if I've got grit and resilience, right? I've got grit, I'm stretching. I've got resilience, I'm snapping back into place. I've got perseverance, I'm doing it over and over and over. Okay, but now my wrist is starting to hurt a little bit, right? From getting snapped on, okay? So tenacity is about adapting how you're doing things, learning from those experiences, and maybe doing something a little bit different. You're still moving forward. You're still doing the same things, but you're just maybe making some adjustments in how you approach it. So now if I take this pen and put it in the way of the rubber band, okay, I'm still snapping, but I've had the pen in the way and it doesn't hurt, okay? That's tenacity. Tenacity is resilience and perseverance plus adaptation. Instead of just doing the same thing over and over, and of course, instead of giving up, you're going to keep doing it, but you're going to make some adjustments. When setbacks happen, tenacity says, what can I do differently to keep moving forward? It's about recalibrating your approach and about making those small adjustments, staying laser focused on your goal without being rigid in the way that you get there. And this adaptability is going to separate tenacity from just plain stubbornness. A batter facing a dominant pitcher isn't just swinging harder every time they strike out against him, right? You're analyzing patterns, pitch speed, location, tendencies. You're adapting your strategy for the next at bat, okay? And it may not happen at the exact next at bat, but if you keep going, eventually you're going to get them. So instead of rolling out the same lineup over and over and over, it's adjusting your lineup throughout the season. And the effort pillar, we talked about physical toughness and pain. This is the mental toughness stuff. This is what's needed for athletes in life. It's grit, it's resilience, it's perseverance, and tenacity. Those are the rubber band traits. That's the third brick. The fourth brick is what I call the 4 C's, and that's the championship mindset. So the mindset so far, we have the control mindset, which is agency and gratitude. That's the inside move. We have the chunking mindset, breaking things into small chunks. That's win the inning, okay? And that's not looking too far ahead, not getting overwhelmed. Is not turning a short-term loss into a long-term loss. Your ability to move on, that's all win the inning. And then we have the rubber band traits for mindset of true mental toughness. Now I want to share with you the 4 C's to build a championship mindset. And these are the traits that true champions possess because they embody humility and hunger, continuous improvement and self-belief, and how you behave and how you carry yourself, not just once, but again, over and over and over. The first C is curiosity. Curiosity is the drive to explore, to ask questions, and to seek improvement. I think the perfect example of this is Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters to ever play the game. And yeah, he was talented. But what set him apart was his relentless curiosity. Williams didn't just show up and swing. He studied the game. He studied pitchers before this was really a thing. He kept notebooks on their tendencies. And he would constantly say, how can I get better? What can I learn from my mistakes? What is that guy doing to make him successful? What if I change this angle or move my foot that way? Like all these little things that he would think about, and then he would experiment. And that drive to explore and to question, and oftentimes question traditional thought, is a lot of what turned him into the legend that he is. And here's where the science comes into this. When you're curious, your brain's hippocampus, which is the learning center, lights up. And it makes it easier to retain and apply what you're learning. And at the same time, your brain also releases dopamine, which is that reward chemical and the motivation chemical. So curiosity doesn't just help you learn, It makes learning feel good and makes you want to do more of it. Okay? Let's apply this to baseball. Say you're struggling with a certain pitch, like a slider low and away, right? It is gone. You're not going to be able to improve if you just say, I can't hit sliders. A curious mindset says, why am I swinging? Why am I missing? What adjustments can I make? Maybe it's your stance, maybe it's your timing, maybe it's your mental approach. The curiosity mindset is going to transform failure into fuel for growth. And here's the real win. Curiosity doesn't just make you better at baseball, it makes the game more fun. You cannot be curious and angry or frustrated at the same time. So if you're playing angry or frustrated, it doesn't make it fun. You cannot be curious and angry or frustrated at the same time. So instead of being frustrated and angry in those moments, you can care. It's okay to care. It's great to care. Right? It's okay to show emotion, but you have to be able to turn it off and embrace that for what it is and be curious about why so that you can truly improve and be better for the next time. They're opposing emotions. They cannot be present together. So instead of getting stuck in frustration, when you're curious and you're engaged, you're solving problems and you're constantly improving. The second C is competitiveness. And when you hear that word, what comes to mind? I know for me, I would always think about it's winning at all costs. It's crushing the competition. It's heated rivalries. It's the Yankees versus Red Sox. It's the Ravens versus the Steelers. It's those big rivalries. We go through every sport. They've all got them. Yeah. But true competitiveness, the kind that sustains long-term success, is about competing with it. It's about competing within. It's about pushing yourself to be better than you were yesterday. And tying it back to winning the inning, it's about beating your yesterday. Beat your yesterday. Going back to our conversation about effort, it's about emptying the tank. That internal rush, that internal feeling of knowing that you gave everything you have. You gave it your absolute best. And that's why the most successful athletes don't just compete with others. They're actually competing mostly with themselves. The greatest athletes don't focus on the competition of the game. That's the end result. They focus on the competition that exists every day in training, in the off season and practice. And of course, they want to win the games and the titles, but their real focus is beating their yesterday. There's a catch. Unhealthy competition, unhealthy competitiveness, seeking shortcuts that are unhealthy or unethical. Going back to episode 8 and the discussion that we had about drive, right? There's generative drive, there's aggressive drive, and there's pleasure drive. Okay. The dangers of too much aggressive drive, which leads to envy, comparing yourself to other people in a destructive way. Those can all derail your performance and crush your gratitude. Healthy competition, though, keeps you focused on your own progress and can elevate the game of those around you. And so what's the takeaway? Competitiveness isn't just about beating your opponent. It's about challenging yourself to grow. It's about showing up every single day and saying, I'm going to push myself a little bit further, okay? And sometimes it's, I'm going to back off and I'm going to reset and refresh a little bit harder, okay? That's the kind of fire and the awareness that separates the good from the great and the great from the elite. The third C is courage. Let's talk about courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's taking action despite fear. Imagine stepping up to the plate with 2 outs, 9th inning, game on the line. In that moment, it's not about your batting average. It's not about your stats. It's not about the rest of your game. It's not about your courage in the moment. Courage is not something that you're born with. It is a muscle that you can strengthen. And this is backed up by neuroscience. When you visualize success, you activate the prefrontal cortex. That's part of the brain responsible for planning and decision making. And when you visualize that success and you visualize your performance, you imagine yourself thriving under pressure, making that perfect swing, connecting with the ball, making that perfect pitch, making that diving play. You're priming your brain to feel ready and capable when that moment comes. If you are caught by surprise by the moments because you haven't visualized them, you haven't planned for them, your responses are going to be reactionary. You're going to be fight, flight, or freeze. When you visualize and you plan for it, you are better apt to demonstrate courage because you've already been in that situation. You've already thought about it. And here's where it gets really interesting. Every time that you choose courage over fear, you're rewiring your brain. It's like teaching your nervous system to view those high pressure moments, those high pressure situations, not as threats, but as opportunities to grow and to demonstrate what you practice. And this shift is crucial in baseball, in every sport, in every aspect of life. It's playing through pain. It's stepping back into the box after getting hit by a pitch, or back onto the mound after taking a comebacker. It's facing that tough opponent. It's showing up again and again and again when you're in a slump. Speaking up for a teammate. Trying out a new position because the coach asked you to and the team needs you. It's volunteering to go first. It's sitting in the front of the class or the room, in the meeting room, right? It's embracing pressure. It's choosing a different path. It's about saying no when everyone else is saying yes. All of these things require courage. And how do you build this? You start small. You take intentional risks in practice, in life. Maybe it's trying a new pitch. Maybe it's speaking up in that meeting. Maybe it's making an aggressive play during the scrimmage when it's okay to make a mistake. Each time that you lean into that discomfort, you're training your brain to respond with action, not avoidance. And then you reflect on that action. And in that moment, or later on, you take a second, you realize what you just did. And that you acted with courage and you did something that was a little bit uncomfortable and you were okay. Even if the outcome wasn't great, you were okay. And courage, along with another C word from our effort pillar in small ball, which was consistency, when those two are combined, courage and consistency, they form the fourth C of our four C's, which is confidence. Confidence isn't something that you're born with either. It's something that you are. A lot of people, you hear people all the time say, well, just be confident or fake it till you make it. I hate to tell you this, it's not true. Confidence is the product of courage and consistency. It is built by showing up, by putting in the work, and proving yourself that you're ready for everything that is thrown at you. Alex Hormozi puts it perfectly. Confidence comes from the evidence of the work you've done. I'll say it again. Confidence comes from the evidence of the work that you've done. Again, confidence is the product of courage and consistency. Well, we just talked about what courage means. Okay, doing the hard and scary things day in and day out, it's reflecting on them and recognizing what you did and that you survived and you're okay. Then is the consistency piece. Think about a baseball player in the batting cage. Every swing, every rep, every hour spent refining their technique, working on the mechanics, working on the timing. All of that builds muscle memory and skill that you're going to rely on in a game. And the more that you show up and commit to that process, the more that you strengthen the neural pathways in the brain associated with focus and precision and resilience. This is what is called neuroplasticity, the ability for your brain to learn, to evolve, and to grow, and how that impacts the rest of your body and how you move and how you behave and respond. So we've got courage and we've got consistency. And each time you step up to the plate, and each time you strike out or make an error, you're demonstrating courage. And each time you consistently take action, you're demonstrating consistency. And so when you take that courage and you practice with consistency, it creates a feedback loop. Courage is going to fuel consistent effort, which builds confidence, which then makes future acts of courage easier. And you can continue to level up and step up. Okay. Take a look at players like Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. There's so many examples, but their confidence doesn't come from arrogance. You could think they're cocky, but it's because of the preparation they've done. It's from the work they've done. They want to be one spotlight. They want to be the ones up to bat in the key moment because they've done the work. Why do their stats show that they can perform in key moments? Because they've done the work. That's where it comes from. Trout isn't confident because he's talented. It's part of it. He's talented because he's put in the work, and he's confident because he's put in the work. He's confident because he's consistent in his approach, whether that's in the cage or during film study, whatever it is. Okay, he knows the evidence of his work is undeniable. Think about a pitcher who faces a high-pressure situation with bases loaded. Not about bravado and arrogance. It's calm assurance that comes from thousands and thousands of practice pitches thrown in similar situations and visualizing what it's like in that moment. And then it's just execution. Confidence is earned. It's not a feeling that you magically wake up with. It is the evidence of the work that you've done, the courage that you've shown, and the consistency you've practiced. If you want to feel more confident at the plate, in the field, in life, whatever, ask yourself, Have I done the work? If the answer is yes, then you have the foundation for true unshakable confidence. If the answer is no, then that's on you. But guess what? You have the agency to fix it. Go win the inning. Those are the 4 C's in the championship mindset: curiosity, competitiveness, courage, and confidence. Let's talk about our 5th and final brick. This is something I love to talk about. It's called a 2-strike approach. And it's a concept that I think every player can apply in every aspect of life. When you're at the plate with 2 strikes, your mindset often shifts. You know the stakes are a little bit higher. You might tighten up your swing. You might focus on making contact. But beyond just adjusting your technique and your mechanics, the 2-strike approach is, of course, all about your mental game. And this is where the idea of growth mindset comes in. Dr. Carol Dweck, the psychologist who coined the term growth mindset, teaches that abilities that we have are not fixed. Okay, our mindset, our abilities are not fixed. They're developed through effort, persistence, and learning. And when we push through those challenging situations, like hitting with 2 strikes, our brains release dopamine, and this reinforces our positive behaviors and strengthens the neural pathways for future success. So what does this look like in action? So a lot of hitters today don't have a great 2-strike approach. And they're up there, and even with 2 strikes, they're trying to hit bombs. They're trying to nukes, right? And one of the reasons that the strikeout rates are so high is because players nowadays, it's not everybody, but a lot of them don't really care if they have 2 strikes because they're trying to do massive damage. And there's this time and place for it, okay? I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I'm saying in certain situations, you might need to adjust and have a different 2-strike approach. Pitchers are the same way. A lot of pitchers now are just trying to gas in by hitters instead of truly pitching, hitting the corners and mixing speeds, okay? And guess what happens when a pitcher tries to gas it by a hitter if he's trying to hit a nuke? Sometimes that's what's going to happen. Sometimes it's either going to be strikeout or it's going to be a bomb, okay? Now, obviously other things happen, but that's higher chances. But that's why we're seeing the increase of those outcomes. Now, there are some key components to a growth mindset, and they're all at play in the 2-strike approach. One of them is continuous improvement and development. So with 2 strikes, you cannot afford to rely on old habits. You need to learn from each at bat. You need to refine your approach, and you need to get it better each time you step in the box. That's continuous improvement. Another component is coachability and learning from criticism. Growth-minded players take constructive feedback. They appreciate it. They use it. Okay? If you're getting feedback or coaching from somebody, you're not going to puff out your chest and get defensive, and you're not going to hunch over and get real small. Even if you make a mistake, even if you fail or strike out, you're not defeated. You're gathering data. If you receive that feedback from a coach and from a teammate, you're not defeated. You take it, you listen, and you learn. The best players know they can always improve. Along with that is open-mindedness and self-confidence. And it's a balancing act. On one hand, you need to be open to change. You need to be open to coaching and critique and criticism, okay? But you also need to be confident in the process. And where does confidence come from? Right? The consistency and the courage, right? So you've got the evidence that you can be confident, but you also should be open-minded to what other people are saying. There's no shortage of philosophies and techniques and approaches in every aspect of the game in life, okay? You'll have people in your ear, including coaches, telling you to change this or that. You try these different things and different approaches, okay? They might be valid for certain people. It doesn't mean they're necessarily valid for you. So you need to be open-minded, but if you try to adopt and change everything, you're going to be a mess. Only adjust what you need to adjust when you need to adjust it. But remember, know you, be you, trust you. And understand that anybody that's trying to give you some coaching is doing so because they care. Another component of growth mindset is understand that effort leads to mastery. Baseball is a game of failure. You're going to strike out. But if you focus on the effort and stick to your approach, you're going to improve. The effort that you put in today leads to mastery tomorrow. Or a great quote recently, today started 3 days ago. Think about that. Another component of the growth mindset is seeing failures as temporary and as an opportunity. Even when you fail, a growth mindset is going to see these failures as stepping stones and not setbacks. You're going to adjust, you're going to learn, you're going to try again. Another component, and maybe even the biggest of the growth mindset, is the ability to celebrate other people's success. So if you strike out and the guy comes behind you and has a game-winning hit, are you going to mope because you struck out? Or are you going to celebrate the fact that he came through? Okay, a player with a growth mindset isn't threatened by other people's success. your team. And you know that there's enough room for everyone to improve. You know that there's enough room for everyone to win. And by everyone improving and everybody performing and picking each other up and covering for each other, that's what elevates the game. That's what elevates the individual. That's what elevates teams. And so what's the takeaway? The two-strike approach isn't about baseball, okay? It's a life strategy. If you focus on continuous improvement in the face of adversity, if you learn from your mistakes, if you push through those tough moments, you're going to develop the mindset of someone who thrives under pressure. And so the next time you're at the plate with two strikes, think of it as your reminder. You have a fixed mindset, you're likely to have a fixed outcome. But when you develop and practice with a growth mindset, you can and you will grow. I've thrown a lot at you with the mindset pillar in the last 2 episodes, but this is essential because baseball is a mental game and so is life. Your mindset is the one thing that you're going to take with you to every situation, to every circumstance, every location, everywhere you live, everywhere you go, every relationship you have, everything. It has the biggest impact on how you approach and how you respond. And the right mindset is a game changer. And I gave you my 5 best mindset bricks that elite athletes and elite performers focus on and master. Remember, the mental game is a skill. You can work on this. You can develop it. It's not something you're born with. It's something you have to train. Thanks for tuning in to the Next Season podcast. We'll see you next time.